Hey guys, I'm Joe from Evil Invaders, and you're on Sonic Perspectives.
Die for me, die, just die, die for me, die for me.
Welcome back, everyone. This is Jonathan with Sonic Perspectives, and I am here with the one and only Joe of Evil Invaders, the man so evil that he will be the villain in the fourth Austin Powers movie whenever they make it. How you doing, Joe?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Yeah, unfortunately, the area I'm in, Philadelphia, we're not quite as metal as Belgium is lately, and based on what I've heard so far. So anyway, we've got a new album out, Shattered Reflection. Was that inspired by the fact that every time people play your music through the stereos, your voice shatters all the mirrors in the house?
Definitely.
Absolutely awesome. Yeah, I was just going to say, this album sounds evil enough that it would give the devil nightmares.
All right.
Excellent. So to start things off here, could we get into a little bit of the background of the band? I think you started back in 2007. Is that correct?
The very first lineup was formed back then. Yeah, that's
okay. True. So could you just give us a brief little biography of how things started and how you got to here?
Basically, I started off just jamming with my cousin in the shed in the yard at my parents' place, and at a certain moment we were just learning to play our instruments, and I was like, damn, it would be cool if we would have a drummer to jam with, you know, and cram some AC/DC and Black Sabbath, you know, and try to sound okay. And then I just called a friend of mine and said, like, hey, your older brother has like a drum kit at home and he doesn't play it, right? He's like, yeah, that's true. He's like, you're gonna be our drummer, you know. So, and then he just said like, okay, fine. And we were just kids, you know, like jamming, and we jammed basically for a few years, played some covers, tried to get a lineup, you know, just me, my cousin, and then one of my best friends. We totally sucked as musicians, you know, we were very bad, but we had a lot of fun. And yeah, then we just kept on playing, and in 2009 we had our first show, and then we recorded like a really crappy demo. And from there on, as things got more and more serious, people started leaving the band and got replaced, you know. And basically, as soon as we recorded our first EP in 2013, that's when things got kind of serious, you know. In the beginning, we were just basically playing for beers and having fun, you know, bringing our friends to the shows and partying, you know. And as soon as we had this stage experience, we said like, okay, now we have some cool songs, we can record something, you know. And then we did that, and as soon as that happened, we realized like, holy shit, people actually like our music, you know. And then we did a little tour through Europe, self-organized, and suddenly Napalm Records contacted us, and they're like, hey guys, we want to sign you. We're like, what the fuck is this, you know? And it's been a wild roller coaster ride ever since.
Excellent. Yeah. So basically, there's a lot of different labels that have been given to your sound. Some people say speed metal, some say thrash metal, some even say like really old-fashioned power metal, like what it sounded like back in the mid 80s before Halloween got big. How would you describe your sound?
Right now with this new record, I would say because we actually had a hard time like trying to put us in a box, you know. And right now I could say extreme heavy metal would be the correct term to put on our music, you know, because it's not thrashy enough to be thrash, but there's too much thrash in it to be just heavy metal, you know. And there's, I mean, there's progressive influences, there's as you said, like some people can hear power metal in it as well. There's a lot of different kind of things going on, but we try not to think in a box. When we write music, it just comes naturally, and as long as it's a cool song, it's going to be on the record, no matter which style it is. Like you could say a song like Forgotten Memories is almost doom, you know, but But a song like Sledgehammer Justice then is complete thrash metal, speed metal, you know. It's hard to put just one label on this band.
Absolutely. And I would say, just from my own observations, that you've made a very varied composite of what metal was back in the 80s, particularly between, I would say, 1984 and 1988. That seems to be where most of the influence is coming from. I think that was, the 84 was right around the time period where I think Germany was not quite to the point where they had thrash metal yet with bands like Destruction and Sodom, but it was almost fast enough to be that. And then, but at the same time, there's a lot of melody in here also. I heard particularly the closing song on the new album, The Circle, heard a lot of different influences on there, even a little bit of the type of stuff that Metal Church used to do back in the day. And could you get into specifically with the new album, how songwriting came together? Like, were you in a certain frame of mind when you were coming up with the songs?
Basically, it's been songwriting that has been happening for 5 years, or like, let's say 4 years before it actually became the songs that were released on the record. We had released our second album, Feed Me Violence, in 2017, and since then we've been writing at a low pace, let's say. We've been touring a lot mainly and focusing on our live shows, and in between we were working. When we were not on tour, we were still working our day jobs, so we didn't have much time for songwriting as a band, but we were writing by ourselves at home. And when COVID really kicked in, we were like, okay, now is the time to actually see what we got. So we made like a Google Drive and put everything in there. Like Max was like, here are my demos. I'm like, here are my demos. And then we started like separating the shit from the good stuff, you know, and it turned out that there was such a big variety of styles there because there was so much time over this stuff. And I was literally like, there are no boundaries, just anything you ever wrote, just throw it in there and we'll see where it goes. But it's all very spontaneous, basically. The same for a song like Forgotten Memories, for example, that was almost didn't exist, that song, because it was I was sitting in the couch at home and it was the lockdown period, you know, and my girlfriend just came to me and she's like, hey, check out this Instagram video Max made, it's pretty cool. And I'm like, I see him playing guitar and he's playing that riff and just like making some solos over it, and I'm like, dude, he never showed me that song. What's that? And he's like, yeah, dude, it's just I was just improvising a bit, you know, wrote some stuff, and well, it's nothing special. I'm like, dude, send over the tracks. And I started cutting and like just making a song structure out of it, because it was just like one little thing from 1 minute, and I just made a song structure out of it, and it just went really fast. It's a very simple structure, but it's just, then with a vocal line, it became a whole new thing. And as I said, like, I try not to think in we should have a song like this and we should have a song like that. It just, if it's cool, it's cool, and it's going to make it to the album. And if it's not cool, it's not going to make it to the record, you know, then we don't release it. So yeah, it's very hard to say this is the way we write songs, because every song is different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was definitely a lot of variety on this one. Now, switching gears just a little bit, because I wanted to get into the very unique vocal style that you employ, and maybe a little humorous story. Back in 2017, I was visiting, my girlfriend actually is Ukrainian, and I was actually over in Kharkiv. Now she's in Eastern Poland because of all the shit that's going on over there. Now she's okay, thank God. But anyway, I showed her some of the songs on Feed Me Violence, and she asked me, how does he talk after a show? So do you have like I'm taking it that you're mostly self-taught, that you learned by listening to your influences, or did you have any formal training as far as vocals go? How did that come about?
Actually, when I started out with this band, I didn't want to be a singer at all. I was just a guitar player, and we couldn't find a singer. So I was like, fuck it, I'll just take the mic and I'll try to do something with it, you know. I'll scream my way through it like Paul Bailoff or whatever, you know. And basically in the first year that I performed live in 2009, I fucked up my voice all the time. to a point where I was actually hanging out in a bar and people were talking to me, and I was like, dude, I can't even, fuck this shit. And that's when I realized, like, if I want to do this properly, I gotta have some technique, you know, and go to the basics. So I started looking for vocal coaches, and I tried several throughout the years, and now I've been with the same vocal coach for, like, let's say 6 or 7 years maybe. And yeah, it's been great. You know, I really master my voice now in a way that I don't force it. I can make all these sounds without straining on my vocal cords and stuff. You know, if I do grunts, I don't use my vocal cords even. So it's all technique. And these days I master it all in a way that I never lose my voice. But losing my voice was never really an issue since I had the really bad experience in the beginning. I immediately felt like, oh, I had this before, this is bad. So my body could really realize, like, oh, you fucked up, don't do that again. And the muscle memory remembers that. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, I got a similar story from Schmear last week. Back in the day, he told me he lost his voice on every single tour Destruction did back in the 80s. And then he finally gave in and started getting vocal coaching. And today he can actually hit notes that Tom Araya couldn't hit anymore back in 1990. So it's,
Yeah,
not
he's
to
doing
get
a
too
good
off
job.
topic. I hear a little bit of similarity between what you do at times and what they were doing back in the old days. Yeah.
Cool.
So to get into the lyrical album a little bit, we've got a lot of, we have a general sort of a theme, I think, of sort of darkness, I guess you could say, but there's a lot of different expressions of each. Could you get into maybe the lyrics of, for starters, the opening song, Hissing and Crescendo? What is that song about as far as words?
Basically, I wrote this song at a moment where I couldn't sleep. Like I'm a really bad sleeper, you know, and sometimes I lay awake for super long. And this was one of these nights where I was just, it's like 4 a.m. I went to sleep at 11 and I'm still in bed, like, fuck this shit, you know. And I don't, you know, when you're in your bed and you're twisting and you can't find your turn, you know, and you're like, fuck it. So I just went up and started writing everything down, but I was like in this half asleep, half awake, and I had this ringing in my ear, like this beep, but also like a sound. And then I started making the comparison of a snake hissing in your ear, like a bit like driving you crazy, you know. But I always have this idea of that there's like 2 sides to everybody in his mind, you know. So like the reptile instinct, like the evil inside of you. And I started making the comparison with that noise that I had in my ear to like the evil thoughts you have, and like the snake is hissing in my ear again, you know, like fucking shit. But also like the fact that you're constantly awake, you start almost like hallucinating.
Yeah.
As if you are being choked by a snake strangling you, or the venom of a snake. And I started making the comparison to that. Just like basically it's about losing your mind, not being able to sleep, and seeing things that aren't there, you know.
All right, excellent. And now another one that you had actually mentioned previously, Forgotten Memories. I think this one has a little bit of a different flavor to it. So how did the words to that one come into being?
There are definitely a lot of topics in that one. It's not just about one thing, but forgotten memories can mean a lot of things to me, basically. But I first got the inspiration from a moment where I was basically babysitting my demented grandmother, and I could see her, like suddenly she's just sitting there in the couch, and she starts looking to something, and she just starts talking to somebody who's not there, which was very strange, you know, like almost like there was a ghost in the room or so.
Okay.
And that was a bit of an eerie vibe, and I was like, whoa. And I tried to understand what would have been going on in her mind, and then being like in your house surrounded by people that you don't remember, and they say like they're your son or daughter, that's like a total mind fuck, you know, it's like living in purgatory. So that was a part of the lyrics, is about that. Another part is about the fact that we all grow older and the past is never coming back. And for a lot of people, that's a very scary thought. Like the life you've known is over, you know, there's only the future ahead and the now, the present. So that's a very scary thought for a lot of people as well. So I thought that was a heavy topic, because everybody's fighting against time and no one's gonna win the fight, you know.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was, it definitely gave me a vibe of someone going mad at times. It reminded me a little bit of my favorite Crimson Glory song, Lost Reflection. That kind of deals with madness in the opposite direction.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of being around a bunch of people you don't know, it's being isolated and having nobody, and then starting to talk to yourself, and then having these split identities. It was a very, very intense song. And I definitely pick up on a similar level of intensity on this album, because
Oh, thanks.
I missed Midnight a bunch. I was so bummed out when he passed away. And
Did you ever see him live?
I actually only saw him live on video. Actually, unfortunately, I did actually catch Crimson Glory live once with the replacement singer that's now with
Todd.
Strike. And he
Yeah,
did a
Todd.
good job, but there's never a replacement for the original.
Yeah, exactly. I feel you.
Yeah, I mean, I was born in 1980, so I missed the golden era of Crimson Glory. I found out about it later when everybody else was obsessed with grunge.
Damn.
Yeah, so you had mentioned previously that coming up as far as influences, that you began playing, I think you mentioned playing Black Sabbath covers. Do you think that to some degree there's a remnant of that, of maybe Tony Iommi's riffing style and some of your riff writing? I hear little bits and pieces here now. I mean, most of the music is way faster than what Sabbath does, but particularly, like, I remember the more underrated era of the band, like the late 80s, when they had Tony Martin and they did albums like The Headless Cross and Tear, and they kicked up the tempo a little bit. Have you heard any of those albums, and maybe a little bit of that just found its way into your songwriting? Or
Yeah, but I think Master of Reality was a bigger influence on me.
okay, yeah, definitely the guitar.
The thing is, the first time I heard it, I was around 10 years old. I think it was the first vinyl I ever saw. My older cousin, the one I started the band with, his dad had this Master of Reality vinyl at home, and we put it on the record player, and we just put the needle on, and it was like super fast riffing and shit. And I was like, holy hell, this is crazy. It's super high vocals. But then I figured out, like, years later, that we were playing it at 78 rounds per minute instead of 32. But it sounded like Megadeth riffs, you know? So that's the first speed metal I ever heard, was Master of Reality, way too fast. That was, I mean, like Children of the Grave was like, it was almost like mechanics or whatever, you know?
Jeez. Yeah, that's
Crazy.
an interesting experience. I've never actually had the opportunity to attempt to speed up a Black Sabbath song. I know that some of the early stuff that Fate's Warning did, they made a habit of speeding up riffs, and one of their songs on Awaken the Guardian actually was a sped up version of Children of the Grave with a couple of notes changed around. It was
Okay.
yeah, very solid record, especially song. So another thing I noticed also is that you tend to throw in some shorter instrumental songs in most of your albums, and there's definitely like an eerie, sort of an atmospheric flavor to it. In this case, we have two of them, Realm of Shadows and Eon. Is there any kind of an implied meaning to either of those that, isn't expressed in words, or was it just sort of more of a general atmospheric thing, and you thought those titles fit the song the best?
Yeah, Realm of Shadows, for example, was basically just the intro to Eternal Darkness. It was just, in the beginning it was one song, but then we thought, like, wow, this is really long, and I know how people these days tend to skip, when they listen to records, especially the younger generation.
Yeah.
And yeah, we tend to cut the intros as a separate track, so people that want to listen to the song immediately, they have a choice to do it. Like if it's on Spotify or something, they want to put it in a playlist, they immediately have the song instead of like the long intro. But I think as a personal vinyl collector and listener, that intro is very necessary to get into the song, because then suddenly it hits harder, you know. And if you have the rest, the calm before the storm feels twice as intense, you know. So that's the thing. Realm of Shadows was just a title that we chose. Sorry for that.
Okay.
That we chose for the song, because it suited the vibe of the song. Aeon is hard for me to comment on, because that's something Max wrote and named, and he just wrote that, and it was finished, and as it was, I mean, the structure as a demo, so I didn't touch that.
Okay. Yeah, it's another funny story. I actually had the opportunity to interview Dennis Stratton weeks back. They're still editing the video because we had some technical difficulties with it. But I asked him a question about they on one of the newest Lionheart albums. They did a cover of a Beatles tune. I think it was Paperback Writer, and I asked him about it, and he said, I didn't have anything to do with that song at all. Everybody else in the band did that, and I wasn't in the studio. I felt so embarrassed asking about that. But it's interesting how that works, how you can get an album put together and it sounds completely unified, but you have different songwriters that are working independent of each other. I think that's a big part of what makes this album so varied and so interesting.
Yeah, because of the lockdown, we literally couldn't sit together to work on the songs. We were all just like sending it to one another, and in a way I think it turned out pretty good for inspiration, that we were all in our own mind, you know, and we didn't have to deal with each other's ideas, and we could really do our thing and then send it over, and then he could do his thing with it, and back and forth, you know.
Yeah. Excellent. I think in a lot of ways, even though the pandemic sucked, not having almost no live music for 2 years, I think that a lot of really great albums are starting to come out because of all the extra time that everybody had. And thankfully, after a long time, it looks like my side of the Atlantic is starting to get into the habit of putting out some good metal. I'm hoping that eventually White Wizard gets something out soon, because I want something that's younger but still old school metal. And we have bands like that here, but a lot of them have been splitting up, and it's kind of disheartening. But some of the older bands are coming back with new stuff as well.
I didn't know White Wizard was still playing, actually.
Yeah, they split up temporarily in 2018 after they put out their last album, but the last I heard, they reformed, I think, with a completely different lineup now.
Okay.
And they're still together. I don't know what they're doing. I think they went on hiatus during the pandemic, and if they're recording anything right now, they're keeping it very quiet, because I haven't heard anything yet.
All right.
Yeah. So basically, now that things are starting to ease off a bit, I'm assuming that there's probably going to be a tour coming up very soon for you guys, or?
Yeah. Well, we just had to cancel this weekend's 2 shows because I'm positive right now with COVID.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, that sucks. That's why I'm coughing all the time, you know. It's like fucking me up a bit, but yeah, at least I'm not in the hospital.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, we had 2 shows planned this weekend to support the release in the Netherlands then. And next week, 2 shows again in the Netherlands, which will still be happening normally. And now we just confirmed a tour with Enforcer and Ambush throughout Europe. So that's in May. So looking forward to that. And then we have festivals planned, but I hope this time with this record we can make it to the US.
Yeah, well, I definitely would love to see you. I know that in Philadelphia, which is the closest city to me, it's mostly smaller venues, and I think the best one for draws of between 200 and 400 people was the Trocadero, and they just closed it down, I think, about a year ago, and I think it was because of the pandemic. There's other places to play, but your best shot on the East Coast is probably New York. That's where you'll probably draw the biggest crowds. And then the
All
West
right.
Coast, you might have several possibilities. The only problem over there is everything's really spread out. On the East Coast, you have like 12, 13 big cities really close together. So it's much
Okay.
easier to get from place to place. But driving from one city to the next in California can take like 6 hours because there's a whole lot of nothing between all of
Yeah.
the cities.
Oh, 6 hours is still okay. I mean,
Yeah, it's doable, but when you compare like Philadelphia, which is a fairly big city, and then New York, it's only about two
yeah.
hours, 2.5
Oh,
hours.
yeah. Okay,
Nice and
that's
close.
perfect.
Yeah.
It's like here in Europe.
Yeah, I think that the original 13 colonies of the United States, we kind of modeled ourselves after Europe, and the people that still live here, I think, are a little bit closer to Europe than the rest of the states.
All right.
Yeah. So, are there any countries that you're other than the United States that you're hoping to play fairly soon that you haven't already? Or
Every single every single country I hope to play. No, I mean, I hope to go back to South America as well. Well, Russia is not gonna happen anytime soon, I'm afraid.
unfortunately, and probably the same with Ukraine.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
sucks.
a bummer.
Fucked
I
up
was over there.
situation, man.
Yeah, I was over there 2 years ago, and they love their metal. It was, I mean, I heard Iron Maiden songs on the radio that I never heard over here in my entire lifetime. I was just
Great.
amazed at all of it. Have you had a chance to play the UK at all?
Yeah, in the past, but right now with the Brexit, I don't know if it's very interesting to go there anymore because probably we'll need a visa or something. Or
Okay, I think you can still get to
UK
Ireland,
is
right?
hard for bands. I mean,
Yeah,
for mainland bands.
yeah. What about Ireland? I think they're still in the EU, right?
Actually, I have no idea.
I think they are. Well, yeah, that's my ancestral homeland. My father's side of the family anyway
Right.
is from Ireland, and if I'm going to be able to catch you live and have an excuse to go back home for a while, that would
All
be
right.
where to go.
Yeah, we played Dublin once with Destruction when we were on tour with them
Ah,
in
okay.
2014, I think, and Dublin was great. I remember the crowd was great.
Excellent. Yeah, and I mean, I've been meaning to. I've actually never been to Belgium. I've been to Germany a few times. I've been to Switzerland once, but only on a layover.
Mhm.
My ex-girlfriend, actually, this is years back. She actually is Romanian, and so I've actually been to Romania, and the layovers were all over Europe. So I got to visit a lot of countries
All
that
right.
I didn't intend to. I only spent like a day or two in Munich and Frankfurt, but it was something at least. But the cool thing was I got to see Brom Castle, so get those
All right.
original evil vibes of Vlad the Impaler there.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. All right. Excellent. So I think that's going to about cover everything for right now. Were there any final anything final you wanted to say to the fans before we call it?
Just check out the new record, and I hope you enjoy it. And I hope to be coming to the US somewhere in the near future.
Excellent. Yeah, we would definitely love to have you. We definitely need more metal here. I mean, ever since the 1990s, we've been struggling to get back to where we were, and it's been a real fight. And I think we're going to need some help from our elder cousins over there. All
All
right.
right.
Excellent. Well, this has been Jonathan with Sonic Perspectives here from Joe of Evil Invaders. Check out the new album, Shattering Reflection. Catch them on tour once they're back on the road. I'm sure the website has all the tour dates. And
Definitely.
we will see you next time. Thanks a lot.
All right, man. Thank you very much.